All right. Ms. Gomet.
Okay. My next question would be a pretty basic one. What would be your top 3 priorities as a town councilor?
This, I'm going to try to get us back on track. I've given you a lot of latitude, and I know a lot of those questions I really needed longer answers. So, but I think on a question like this, I'll give you 30 seconds, please. And to start with, Mr. Frieda.
Thank you. The first, spending. We need to control that. I think we have to implement a freeze of all hiring in town unless, for example, the fire chief or the police chief left. And I think we have to reverse the current policy, which is let's have the town manager review if there's a vacancy and see if we need to fill it immediately. I think we should have an immediate freeze and see if we can get by with 6 months and then review it at that point if we need to fill it. Second, I think we need to, I would like to prioritize a little more openness in the way we govern things. I would ask that all boards are televised. Third, I would look towards having a cap either on the, at least on the amount of bonds that we issue in town, or even look towards a tax cap.
Mr. Farrell.
As stated earlier, I mean, economic development and all the pieces that go with it. I've worked on this for the last 3 years and will continue working on it. I am a fiscal conservative. I only believe that you should buy what you can afford, and we should operate like we operate in our own homes. And as stated earlier, with regards to the bonds, only roll off when we pay off. And the last piece is I believe in trash amnesty. I believe that this holiday I stood on a ladder and jumped up and down on that can until I could get every piece of trash into it. I would just love to see us have, you know, one day right after the holidays so we could throw anything out that we want.
Mr. Green.
Okay. The 3 priorities, I actually have 6 on the website, but the top 3 that I actually looking at is financial control, being a fiscal conservative. That would naturally be one of my top priorities. Making sure that we start, kind of have a novel idea. If I was elected, I'd be one of the 5 that say, let's start the budget process a little differently this year. Let's start at 0 tax impact. Let's try that for a change and see how things shake out. Of course, you want to try to keep things balanced. Services are very, very important in town. We can't let these organizations come in and say, okay, I'm going to cut 3, 4 police officers and 6 firefighters, but let's maybe cut some middle management a little further. You know, I'm doing a lot more with less in business, and that's what you got to look towards. Number 2, economic development. We talked about it already, but I'm going to state it again. That's number 2 for me, absolutely, and for the reasons I talked about earlier. And land use. You know, we really got to be on top of these things. When we're talking about, you know, these type of developments, yeah, Woodmont might have been 4, 5, 6 years in the making, whatever it was, but somebody should have been there. Somebody should have been talking about it. Somebody should have maybe spoke to the owners a little bit more longer, or maybe a couple more times, and tried to offer some type of. I mean, I just don't like a lot of development in the wrong areas. We have these areas up there that we can develop, and they should be in certain parts of the town, not right down in the downtown middle of the heart of the area.
Mr. Dolan.
Marty, I think that the primary goal, you asked for the top. You asked for the top 3 goals, 3 priorities. Business development would be my number 1 priority. I think that we have to move without delay. We need to act strategically and not tactically, and I think that's what's going to take the future of the community forward. Secondly, preserving our quality of life. I think that we need to pay attention to what brought us here in the first place, and I think if we maintain that will keep us here, and that will keep our homes value steady and eventually increasing. And lastly, public safety. I'm a believer philosophically that the federal government's primary job is to protect the country. I think local government's primary job is public safety. That's the core function. Everything else is an added luxury, but we should never sacrifice public safety.
Mr. Seekman.
Three priorities I would look at, one being economic development around the town. That has to be tied into also to the open space issues for how we're going to keep our town heritage, or how the townspeople want the town to be. I think the other two things are, we need to control our spending. We need to look at our, nobody likes to talk about it, but we need to talk about our payroll and our benefits that we give and stuff like that. I mean, that's a majority of our budget. We took pay cuts. We got rid of all the, what do we call them, fringe benefits and stuff like that. I don't see a lot of that happening in town. I understand there are unions involved and stuff like that, but, you know, we have, everybody's given, unions will have to give a little bit too, and I'm not against unions. I'm for unions. I have family members in unions. I think they serve a purpose, but when everybody's taking pay cuts and getting cuts, they could help a little bit too. So I think spending is a big priority, economic development, and then I would like to see some type of higher transparency in what goes on with the town, more than just the school board and the town council being